Hello, today I'm going to be reading chapter 14 of Takeout by Margaret Maron. And also, I got a new plant. It's pretty great. Um, and also, I haven't been uploading for this past weekend because it was Easter and I just took some time off, but I will post all of the chapters that were supposed to go uploaded over the weekend today, and I hope you can catch up and enjoy them. So, Chapter 14 of Takeout by Margaret Maron. Sam Hentz and Din- Sam Hentz and Dinah Urbanska arrived at the address Tilly had given them to find that Jack Bloss's apartment was on the fourth floor. No elevator. One of the two keys they'd taken from the victim's pocket opened the street door, and as he followed Urbanska up the stairs, Hentz wondered how an old man with a pacemaker had made it up and down so many steps every day. The rookie detective was barely breathing hard, but pride alone kept Hentz from huffing and puffing as he joined her on the final landing. Gonna have to hit the gym harder, he told himself as he turned the victim's second key in the lock of apartment 4C. A kitchenette lay directly in front of the door with a living room to the left and a bedroom and bath to the right. The only windows were two in the living room that looked out onto the hodgepodge of narrow storefronts that cluttered 10th Avenue. Hanging between the windows was a birdcage. The apartment was furnished in what Hentz thought of as old single male, utilitarian and comfortable enough, but with little to soften the edges. "Oh no," said Urbanska, who had gone straight to the birdcage. "It's dead, Sam." She she gazed she gazed mournfully at the body of a blue parakeet that lay motionless on the floor of the cage. "The seed cup's empty and the water bottle's dry. Poor little thing. They can't go without food and water for more than 2 or 3 days, and if Bloss didn't fill them up before he left here Tuesday—" "Too bad," said Hentz, but his eyes were busily taking inventory of the apartment. The kitchenette was essentially a single counter with a cooktop, sink, and microwave, and it held a bare minimum of equipment: two saucepans and a skillet, a toaster, some mismatched china, and a few pieces of tableware. The refrigerator was empty except for a seltzer, a bottle of vodka with perhaps 2 shots left, a head of lettuce, a plastic container of deli olives, salad dressing, and a desiccated lime with 1 slice missing. In the cupboard were a can of tomato soup, 2 cans of sardines, a box of egg noodles, a jar of instant coffee, and some packets of saltines. "No wonder he stopped to eat that takeout Charlotte Randolph gave him," said Hentz, looking over Urbanska's shoulder at the bare shelves. A dirty coffee mug sat in the sink, but everything else was clean and tidy. "He drank his coffee black, and I don't see any sugar," Urbanska said. He could have been really hungry. In the bedroom, a sofa bed with a double mattress appeared to be permanently open, and a small TV sat atop the dresser. A Fresnel light aimed at the ceiling served as a bedside lamp, and when Urbanska walked over to turn it on, her foot tangled in an extension cord and almost pulled the television off the dresser. Only Hentz's quick reflexes saved it from crashing to the floor. "Oh, jeepers," she cried. "I'm sorry, Sam." Accustomed to her clumsiness, he just smiled and switched on the light, which bounced off the white ceiling and lit up the windowless room. "Start with the dresser," Hentz said, and while she began on the dead man's socks and underwear, he stepped into the bathroom. The medicine cabinet held the usual assortment of over-the-counter grooming aids and pain remedies, and in orange plastic bottles of prescription pills. Coumadin, he said, dropping it into an evidence bag. A pair of scissors lay in the sink along with some stray gray hairs. Looks as if he might have trimmed his beard before he left. Probably wanted to look nice for his old girlfriend, Hence said. Charlotte Randolph? Yeah, she all but told the lieutenant and me that she and Bloss might have had a roll or two in the hay back when they were younger. They had an affair, but yet she didn't recognize his picture. Not the first one Albie showed her. His eyes were closed in that one, and she said the beard threw her off. Also, it'd been years since they last met. Did you believe her? Hence shrugged. What lips my lips have kissed, and where and why? Huh? Just saying that Randolph might have had so many lovers in her day that she couldn't keep them all straight. They went through the pockets of all the clothes in the closet, finding nothing but a few coins, then moved on to the living room, where again everything was tidy, with nothing apparently out of place. Instead of a couch, there were two lounge chairs with a step table between them that held several library books, a biography of Arthur Miller, and two Stephen King novels among them. Salt and pepper shakers and a placemat on the coffee table in front of the chairs suggested that this was probably where Bloss ate his meals. A waist-high bookcase covered most of the wall beneath the windows. The last 2 or 3 issues of Variety were neatly piled next to a wicker basket that held parakeet supplies. The wider shelves below were filled with scrapbooks stacked one upon another, 2 or 3 deep, and each labeled with the name of a play. Some of the titles were familiar, but for every hit, there were 6 or 8 run-of-the-mill shows that didn't break even and had faded into obscurity. Probably the record of his life, thought Hence. A gap near the bottom must have held the scrapbook that now lay atop a desk at the end of the bookcase. This one was labeled Metropolitan Opera. While Urbanska started on the desk drawers, Hence took the scrapbook to a clear spot under the windows. Affixed to the open page was a program for La Boheme from almost 50 years ago. Excuse me. Wait. Okay. According to the cast list, Mimi was sung by Marta Constanza, and she had signed the program, as had the tenor and some other cast members. On the opposite page was a review clipped from one of the New York papers. The headline was, Mi Sciamano, Charlotte Randolph, and it praised the unexpected brilliance of a beautiful young newcomer who stepped in at the last minute when Miss Constanza took a fall backstage and cut a gash in her face that required several stitches and an overnight stay at St. Luke's Hospital. Charlotte Randolph said that Jack Bloss had worked on that production as part of the lighting crew, but his name did not appear in any of the technical credits. Hence turned past several pages of autographed Met programs till he came to a clipping from Variety, dated a few months later. It noted that Charlotte Randolph would be singing Berta in The Barber of Seville. Not the lead soprano, but still quite a step up from the chorus. Stuck deep in the groove where 2 pages met were torn pieces of a black and white snapshot. They had been crumpled at one point, then smoothed out again. Hence fit the pieces together. The young woman had blonde hair and dimples. The man with his arms around her was smooth-shaven. Charlotte Randolph and a beardless Jack Bloss. He put the pieces back as he'd found them. You find anything useful? He asked Urbanska. Looks like he was divorced 20 years ago, and the wife got half his pension in the settlement. But what was keeping his cupboard bare is that these bank statements show monthly automatic payments to a nursing home out in Suffolk County. An hour later, Hens and Urbanska finished reporting what they'd learned at Jack Bloss's apartment. We called that nursing home in Suffolk County, Hens said. They wouldn't tell us much, just that his son had been a patient there for several years. We asked if he was allowed visitors, and the nurse said yes, but that he wouldn't be able to help us. He'd been comatose since the first day he was admitted. There was a picture of a young man on his dresser, said Ubenska, sitting on a motorcycle. That might have been him. It was the only personal picture in the bedroom. Lots of Bloss in his scrapbooks, though, said Hens, with actors and directors and fellow crew members, and this. He opened the scrapbook they'd brought back and handed Sigurd the torn pieces of the photograph he'd found, the picture of Bloss and Charlotte Randolph. As Hens had done earlier, she put them together on a sheet of paper, this time with double-sided tape to hold the pieces in place. Which one of them tore it up, do you suppose? Asked Detective Elby, passing the paper on to Jim Lowry, or first balled it up. Hens shook his head. Doesn't really matter, does it? He's the one kept all the pieces. She probably did have a fling with him, either before or after she got her big break, said Sigurd. But even if it ended in anger, is that a motive for poisoning him now, all these years later? Did you find any indication that they were in touch recently? No, and the man was a real archivist when it came to the shows he worked on, said Hens. Every item in these scrapbooks is labeled and dated, so are the photographs. All except for this one. He slid the composite into a plastic sleeve and labeled it as he spoke. We brought back his files, said Urbanska, pointing to 5 manila folders on the desk behind her. Those are mostly business records, receipts, and his son's medical records. He doesn't seem to have kept much personal correspondence, and I didn't find anything from Randolph. What about a cell phone? We asked Tilly. We didn't find one on him. I doubt if he owned one. I did a quick look at his bills. Nothing for a cell phone. Just a landline and no messages on the answering system. Go back through all files and the scrapbooks again, Sigurd said. See if anything jumps out. Her own eyes were snagged by that first review, and she turned the scrapbook page towards Hens, who had become her de facto opera authority. What does that headline mean? Me Shamino Charlotte Randolph? In English, it would be They Call Me Charlotte Randolph. It's a play on the opera's most popular song. When the man asks her what her name is, the woman says, Me Shamino Mimi. They call me Mimi. I guess the critic that wrote this meant that she owned the role. Did critics review every performance back then? No, he said slowly. No, they didn't. This guy was a pretty big deal in his day. He would not have reviewed the opening night performance, not subsequent ones. Remembering the bookseller from North Carolina, Sigurd said, So all the planets really did line up for Charlotte Randolph that night, didn't they? He nodded. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Elaine Alby's blue eyes widened. You think Jack Bloss could have caused the Star's accident so his girlfriend could go on? Hence frowned. He might have caused the accident, but how could a no-name stagehand get a critic like Franklin McCall back to the Met? They batted around unlikely scenarios till Hence said, "This is starting to sound like All About Eve." Sigurd smiled at the reference. Was Charlotte Randolph in the Annie Baxter role? Younger Banska was looking blank. "I'll lend you the video," Hence said. Glancing at the wall clock above their whiteboard, Sigurd decided to call it a day. Elby, you, and Lori question Randolph's niece and stepson tomorrow. They had access to the lasagna, and it wouldn't be the first time someone tried to hurry up an inheritance. Tilly, see if you can locate Bloss's ex-wife. Turning back to Hence, she said, "We ought to talk to Randolph again, and Ms. Delvicho as well. See if she blames Mouton for her daughter's hit and run and why." And that's the end of chapter 14, and I will see you in, well, I'll be uploading the next chapter in about an hour, so stay close, and as always, have a wonderful rest of your day.